Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm so pleased to be joined by Joe Alwyn, who plays Nick on the Hulu limited series Conversations with Friends. Joe, congratulations on this performance. I love the show. I think you're so great on it. What was it about Nick initially that interested you in the role and playing the part?
Thank you. I was a big fan of Sally Rooney first and foremost in the book when it came out. And kind of would gladly have jumped into anything that she was a part of, really, and that Lenny was making, Lenny Abrahamson. But with Nick, I just really liked him as a character. I thought there was a lot to him, and that he was very complex. And I suppose what more specifically, I liked that when you meet him, he's one thing, but you don't quite know why until later. Essentially, when you meet him, he's quite guarded and has his cards close to his chest and is quite enigmatic and difficult to read. But really, what might appear him being kind of distant or withholding, I think he's quite vulnerable and fragile, and it's really his way of trying to hold on. And we don't know when we first meet him what place he's in. He's kind of been through his own kind of storm and is in a place of recovery, really, but that's not revealed until later. And I liked kind of the idea of peeling back those layers and seeing him kind of be brought back to life through Frances. They kind of provide a space for each other to kind of heal and grow into in a way. And I thought it was a really nice arc.
Yeah, I like that arc too. And the thing I love about your performance is while he is so guarded and like obviously like you said, like there is layers to come, he is still you're very charming and he's very engaging, and you have to believe that Frances would be interested in him as well. And so I think it's a really great balance that you're doing, like playing that kind of like insecurity or whatever, like very, in his own head kind of, but also like being charming enough to make himself appropriate, I guess, as a suitor for France. I just found that really interesting. And I guess, how did you like think about that, like modulating, I guess, your, for lack of a better word, your charm, while also like, kind of like being true to the characters? And I found that really compelling.
Yeah, it's tricky because kind of in broad brushstrokes, he has to, on one level, seem quiet enough and reserved enough and not giving enough for someone like Bobby to kind of dismiss him early on as just being quiet or boring and not having much to him. But at the same time, if you kind of zoom in on him, like Frances does, there needs to then be something else there that kind of flickers underneath that she is drawn to. So it was like a fine line to play. And although France is also frustrated by him, I think, understandably so. And it was that line between kind of not giving, but giving enough, and having a charm and having bouncing. I remember Lenny speaking a lot kind of about bouncing from, surface to depth, and those moments when we see the flickers of what might be underneath or what he might have gone through or what it is that Frances is pulled to, but never kind of so explicitly that she knows what it is or that she knows why she is pulled towards him, and always with enough of a mask to also for him to be kind of frustratingly at times enigmatic.
When you are like, obviously, like we're saying, like later in the show, it revealed that he's had some mental health struggles and stuff. As an actor, are you like, are you doing research in that? Like, how do you approach that part of it? Like what he's gone through, or like, it's not spelled out completely, obviously, for the audience, but I guess for you, like, how did you imagine that? And like, what was your process of tackling that part of his character?
Well, there are aspects of it I can relate to, not the same severity as him, but I think it's something that most people can relate to be honest, and is people speak about it more and more now, which is a good thing. But there are sides to that I could definitely relate to, and then also just thinking about it a lot and him a lot, and having a book that was great to kind of go back to, even though it's Frances's diary essentially, and it's her point of view, but it was a great resource. And having lots of conversations with Lenny and being incredibly collaborative about why Nick was in the place he was, and what that does to you as a person, to your self-esteem, to your ability to be in social situations or not be in social situations. So just do lots of conversations and thinking, and yeah, and also drawing on to a degree own experiences.
Yeah. Obviously Nick is an actor. I was wondering for you, like, what kind of actor did you imagine him being? Obviously you're an actor too, but I was like, how good is he as an actor, I guess? And like, what was your take on that? We see him obviously on stage. I thought he's doing very well, but for you as an actor, like, what was your take on his acting?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I guess an actor playing an actor who you do get to see act a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that too much. I mean, it's funny because we had to do those scenes from Cat on the Hot Tin Roof. I remember we did spend a whole day doing it. We filmed about 3 full scenes, and you do see a little snip of it in the final cut. But yeah, I mean, I imagined him as a good actor, but you know, never quite. It took off to a degree, but never quite took off. But I didn't, to be honest, I didn't focus too much on what I felt about him as a performer. I think he was so kind of clouded by other things that that have kind of taken him over and kind of sunk him. He doesn't have kind of impulses just because he's in such a kind of frozen space.
Yeah, I know. I talked to Alison about this too, but obviously just a great, the two of you together are really great. And obviously I think, you know, working with the same team that the normal people, and you have the same intimacy coordinator and stuff, I guess, how did that, you know, what surprised you about that experience, and how did it help you guys get, like, or did that help you at all unlock the performances? Because obviously, like, so much of the intimacy on the show is like performance based, you know, not like gratuitous or anything. So I found that it works so well. And I just love the way you guys work together. So I guess what surprised you about that, basically?
Thank you. Yeah, it was a really interesting side of it. I mean, it's a big part of those characters as well, because they're not very good at communicating full stop, you know, out loud, verbally, let alone knowing what they're feeling, and then trying to say it to someone else is kind of impossible for them. But one thing they are able to do, you know, they communicate physically, and they're kind of very intimate that way and kind of come alive that way. And often also the conversations around them in those scenes are when they're kind of at their most joyful or kind of free in a way, which was interesting. I'd not worked with an intimacy coordinator before. And yeah, I thought that the woman who kind of came in and like steered the ship there is called Ita O'Brien, and she worked on Normal People and a bunch of other shows. And she just has like a really safe system to kind of explore those scenes and almost choreograph them a bit like a dance scene or a fight scene. So they're quite technical in their beats, which is really helpful, because then you kind of know what you're doing and it takes the pressure off. And the way that Lenny spoke about them, like you mentioned, they're a bit like extensions of conversations. Hopefully they're not there for the sake of gratuity. They each have a slightly different feel and a different meaning and a different purpose. And of course, they're like strange, funny things to be doing as a job with a friend. But, you know, Ita is the one who comes into the room and rolls around on the floor and takes out all the embarrassment. And Lenny's like the funniest guy in the world. So that side of things was actually quite easy. And yeah, she just has a really like safe system that then lets you kind of get on with it and go for it.
No, that's awesome. You mentioned Lenny, obviously, like, such a great director, gotten these incredible performances from like Brie Larson and Room, obviously Normal People. In this show, I think all four of you are incredible. How did, like, for lack of better, like, how does he do that, basically? But like, what was your, like, how is he able to get these kind of performances from you, or what impressed you about him as a director, as an actor? You know?
Yeah, he's amazing. I was such a fan of his beforehand. I think what it is, I mean, I think it's many things, but his attention to detail is like unlike anyone else I've worked with. Like, he's so rigorous in terms of investigating the material, the script, the scenes, beat by beat. Why is that there, or what is that moment, even if it's unsaid and unspoken? He really wants to kind of drill as deep as he can to kind of mine it for everything that it's worth. And I think the worlds that he creates are so often wonderfully naturalistic and kind of real. And I think his attention to detail is a huge part of that. And he's also incredibly, he's not overbearing in doing that. He's always willing to kind of change a line, or what feels right, what feels wrong, why isn't it working? He's very collaborative as well, even from being cast a few months before we started shooting. He wasn't kind of, you know, it wasn't, I'll see you when we start. He wanted to jump on a Zoom right away, send over the scripts, ask what was working, read through stuff with Alison on Zoom. So he's both incredibly collaborative, incredibly kind, thoughtful, like rigorously detailed, and like just like brilliantly smart.
Yeah, you have like this. I think is probably the longest you were played a single character, right? I mean, like it seems like the shoot was pretty long, and obviously 12 episodes. Like, how much did you enjoy getting to explore a character that at this depth of a level, basically, like for you as an actor?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely the longest I've been on a shoot. It was 5 months or something. And firstly, it's a luxury knowing what you're doing for 5 months work-wise. But yeah, it's nice to spend that time with the same group of people and with a character. And really having time to kind of tell that story over a longer form. It was tricky as well. I mean, because it's obviously all, you're not shooting it in order, and it's not a show that is hugely plot driven in the sense that there are huge moments happening, and because you're shooting the end at the beginning and the beginning at the end and stuff like that, you really have to try and track that like through line, which is often very internal and quiet and subtle. And I think that's also going back to Lenny, where he really helps in being so he's paid so much attention to kind of every little shift, and is thinking about it in the edit as well, of course. So it does take it. Yeah, it took a lot of thought, but it was ultimately, I really liked. It was nice spending that amount of time with someone. It's a lot more satisfying than going in for a couple of weeks on something.
Yeah. Do you have when you're doing that, are you also like, I guess, are you talking to your fellow actors about the motivations of the characters? I'm thinking like for like Nick and Melissa and their relationship's obviously so complex, and I think the choices that Melissa makes, certainly I was like, oh, it did not go exactly as how I expected. So I guess, are you guys like, are you talking to Jemima about like, oh, what is our relationship like, or Nick and Melissa's relationship like, and stuff like that?
Yeah, everyone was very, we talked about it a lot, both when we were filming and not filming. People just kept speaking about it because people cared about it and were kind of continually interested in it, which is kind of testament to Sally's writing, I think. But yeah, we would discuss all those things. I remember meeting up with Jemima early on and talking about, the state that they're in and why they're in and who is Melissa and who was Nick, and doing all of that separately, but also together, which was a nice thing. And having the time to do that was a real luxury. It's interesting though, because it is so heavily, it is Francis's point of view. It's the first time I think that I've been in something that you're performing a certain way and you feel you are giving a certain thing to another character. But because the show is so Francis driven, when you watch it back, you then realize how you are coming across to her, or other people were coming across to her in a way that you might have not felt, which was interesting. Particularly early on in those like first 3 episodes, when he is so guarded in a way. I don't think he is trying. And so for me playing him, I felt he was trying and being as open as he could be. But then watching it through Francis's eyes, you can see both why she is drawn, but completely why she is also frustrated by him.
Yeah,
it was interesting to see.
Do you have like, obviously it's out now, and you like, have you watched it, or do you know like what is the response you've gotten from like friends or whatever of the show and the performance? I guess, like, have you heard from people like, oh, this is great, or what the hell is Nick doing, kind of stuff, or like?
I haven't watched it in its entirety back since it came out, but I want to, and I will do. Yeah, it's been so lovely, like having responses from friends and family and people talk about it. You spend a long time on those things and you put a lot of work in, so it's really nice to hear lovely responses from people, especially when it's a book that means so much to people, myself included. And you feel like you're in possession of this thing that means a lot to a lot of people. So it's kind of like a privilege to be a part of that, and it's nice to now like share that with everyone else.
Yeah. And so this is an award site. So I wanted to say you won a Grammy last year for co-producing a Folklore. I don't want to ask you about necessarily all that, but I would love to know like what you do with the Grammy. Where did you put it? I guess I'm like trying to think what I would do if I happened to be lucky enough to win a Grammy. So congratulations on that. But like, where'd you put it? I guess.
I actually don't know where it is. I think it's on the piano.
Nice. That's good. It's a good spot for it. A music award certainly deserves a spot on the piano, probably. This is great. Joe Alwyn plays Nick on Conversations with Friends. You can watch all the episodes on Hulu right now. Thank you so much for this. Like I said, it's a great performance, and you're really, really good on the show. So thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Thank you.